Hey everyone, All in Arrowhead here. We're heading into week 3 of the NFL preseason, and after the first full slate of preseason games, we're starting to get a better idea of what these teams have to work with heading into the regular season. Of course, the preseason is always unpredictable, and last week's predictions definitely reflected that, so we'll see if I can have a better week this time around. We saw plenty of interesting performances across the league last week, from the Lions and Bengals giving us a look at their quarterback depth, to the Packers and Steelers showcasing young quarterbacks and offensive pieces. The Colts and Patriots battled to a tie, the Chargers and Texans gave us some explosive offensive performances, and the Cardinals and Raiders provided plenty of action from their quarterback rooms. We also saw the Titans and 49ers play a close game, the Broncos and Falcons give their depth plenty of opportunities, the Buccaneers and Jets produce a huge defensive touchdown from Aiden Garnes, and the Dolphins and Commanders give us another interesting look at their young players. With another week of preseason action ahead, there are still plenty of questions to answer. Which players can build on what they showed last week? Which depth pieces are starting to separate themselves? And which teams can put together a more complete performance? Let's see what this week's slate has in store and find out which teams I think will come out on top. Let's get into the games! The Raiders and Texans are both looking to respond after disappointing preseason openers, with Las Vegas falling 27-14 to Arizona and Houston losing 27-7 to the Chargers. Both teams showed flashes offensively, but neither could maintain that production for all 4 quarters. Las Vegas opened with a 10-play, 68-yard drive that ended with Kirk Cousins finding Michael Mayer for a 13-yard touchdown. Cousins finished 5 of 6 for 50 yards, while Fernando Mendoza later led a 10-play, 79-yard drive that ended with a 6-yard touchdown to Jack Besh, finishing his debut 10 of 16 for 97 yards. Mike Washington Jr. provided some explosiveness with 63 rushing yards on just 6 carries, while E.J. Williams Jr. had a 41-yard catch, but the offense couldn't produce another touchdown after halftime, with Aiden O'Connell finishing 4 of 13 for 85 yards. Defensively, Grady Vance led the Raiders in tackles, while Patrick Johnson and Cyan Sloan each recorded a sack. Houston also started quickly against Los Angeles, with Davis Mills leading an 11-play, 75-yard touchdown drive that ended with a 5-yard pass to Jared Wayne. Mills finished 9 of 15 for 82 yards and a score, while Noah Whittington led Houston with 40 rushing yards on 13 carries. The Texans couldn't maintain that momentum, though, and Amar Johnson's 55-yard reception for the Chargers helped swing the game. Rookie Marlon Klein provided one of Houston's few explosive plays with a 31-yard catch, while Graham Mertz went 4 of 7 for 23 yards. On defense, Aiden Fisher led the Texans with 7 tackles, and Naquan Jones and Dominique Robinson each recorded a sack. After seeing both offenses show flashes in their openers, I think this one will come down to which team can sustain that production longer. Houston has an opportunity to bounce back, and I think the Texans will make enough plays on both sides of the ball to get it done. I'm picking Houston to come away with the win, moving the Texans' preseason record to 1-1, while the Raiders fall to 0-2. San Francisco enters this one looking to bounce back from a 19-13 loss to Tennessee, while the Chargers are coming off a 27-7 win over Houston. The 49ers had some promising offensive stretches in their opener, but Los Angeles showed just how dangerous its depth can be when its big plays start connecting. San Francisco put together an 11-play, 68-yard touchdown drive against Tennessee, with Patrick Taylor finishing it with a 1-yard score. Adrian Martinez completed 16 of 30 passes for 159 yards, while Curtis Rourke was much more efficient at 12 of 14 for 101 yards. Dejon Stribling led the team with 7 catches for 63 yards, and Sincere McCormick added 38 yards on 10 carries. Still, the 49ers managed only 13 points and couldn't consistently finish their possessions. Defensively, Nick Martin led the team with 8 tackles, while Tatum Bethune and Ogbo Okoronkwo each recorded a sack, with Larry Worth III and James Thompson Jr. adding half sacks. The Chargers, meanwhile, got a huge performance from Amar Johnson against Houston. After Houston's opening touchdown, Johnson answered with a 7-yard rushing score, then broke loose for a 55-yard catch that set up his second rushing touchdown. He finished with 2 rushing scores and 2 catches for 68 yards. Trey Lance went 12 of 20 for 164 yards and an interception, while DJ Uyunglele completed 6 of 9 for 120 yards and a touchdown to Devontae Ross. Greg DeRosier Jr. added 27 rushing yards on 10 carries, while Amani Johnson led the defense with 6 tackles and Jameer Carter recorded a sack. Los Angeles also held Houston scoreless after the first quarter. I think this matchup will come down to whether San Francisco can finish its drives while preventing Los Angeles from hitting another series of explosive plays. The 49ers have enough defensive talent to keep this close, but the Chargers' offensive momentum gives them the edge. I'm picking the Chargers to come away with the win, moving Los Angeles to 2-0, while San Francisco falls to 0-2. The Jets and Steelers will meet after very different preseason openers, with New York falling 24-16 to Tampa Bay, while Pittsburgh rolled past Green Bay 28-9. The Jets did show some encouraging flashes offensively, while the Steelers got a particularly strong performance from their young quarterbacks. New York showed some early promise in its 24-16 loss to Tampa Bay, especially after Geno Smith was scratched. Brady Cook helped lead a 12-play, 65-yard opening drive to a field goal, and Braylon Allen then broke a 31-yard touchdown run, finishing with 44 yards on 4 carries. Cade Klubnik added 56 yards on 5 of 7 passing as the Jets took a 13-10 halftime lead, but Tampa Bay's 47-yard interception return for a touchdown changed the game. Bailey Zappi struggled after taking over, throwing 2 interceptions and taking 2 sacks, while Cam Camper led the Jets with 37 receiving yards. Defensively, Will McDonald IV had the Jets' lone sack, but Tampa Bay's late 16-play, 65-yard touchdown drive sealed the comeback. Pittsburgh, meanwhile, got an impressive performance from rookie Drew Aller, who went 10 of 13 for 153 yards and accounted for 3 touchdowns. After Mason Rudolph completed 10 of 11 passes for 93 yards and drove the Steelers all the way to the Green Bay 1-yard line before the Packers stopped them on 4th down, Will Howard helped Pittsburgh regain momentum with a long scoring drive that ended in a 1-yard touchdown run by Lou Nichols. Aller then took over, throwing touchdown passes to Caden Weegan and Riley Nowakowski while also rushing for a 3-yard score. Pittsburgh finished with 385 total yards compared to just 160 for Green Bay, although the Steelers also committed 11 penalties for 135 yards. I think this game will come down to whether New York can create the same kind of explosive plays it showed early against Tampa Bay while avoiding the offensive droughts that followed. Pittsburgh's young quarterback room looked very comfortable in its opener, and I think that gives the Steelers the advantage. I'm picking the Steelers to come away with the win, moving Pittsburgh to 2-0 while the Jets fall to 0-2. Carolina is coming off a 29-14 loss to Buffalo, while Jacksonville rallied from a 20-6 halftime deficit to beat New Orleans 24-20. Both teams showed some encouraging depth performances, but Jacksonville's ability to finish its comeback gives the Jaguars some momentum heading into this matchup. The Panthers had some bright spots despite the loss, with Kenny Pickett going 16 of 19 for 92 yards and a touchdown before Kyle Trask added another scoring pass to John Mechie III. Carolina also got 28 rushing yards from Anthony Tyus III, while Jasim Reed capped an 83-yard drive with a 6-yard touchdown. Defensively, Cam Gill provided pressure with a sack, but Buffalo's offense eventually created too many opportunities, finishing with 396 total yards and pulling away late. Jacksonville had a completely different type of game, overcoming that 20-6 halftime deficit with 18 unanswered points. Carter Bradley threw for 105 yards and a touchdown, while Joey Aguilar provided a spark with a 43-yard day. Jamari Taylor was especially effective on the ground, carrying 22 times for 78 yards and a touchdown, while Trevor Pena had a 43-yard reception. The defense also stepped up during the comeback, with Brian Thomas Jr. recording a sack and Jabbar Muhammad and Jelani Tavai each making 6 tackles. That second-half surge ultimately gave Jacksonville the 24-20 win. This one should come down to whether Carolina can prevent Jacksonville from building the kind of second-half momentum it showed against New Orleans. I like the Panthers' quarterback depth, but Jacksonville's run game and ability to make plays late gives the Jaguars the edge. I'm picking Jacksonville to come away with the win, moving the Jaguars to 2-0, while Carolina falls to 1-2. Green Bay is looking to bounce back from a 28-9 loss to Pittsburgh, while Denver enters this matchup after a convincing 27-7 win over Atlanta. The Packers showed some encouraging performances from their depth, but couldn't turn enough of them into touchdowns, while Denver found ways to score through multiple phases. Jordan Love played one series and went 3 of 5 for 18 yards before Tyrod Taylor completed 4 of 8 for 21 yards, and Kyle McCord provided the strongest passing performance at 12 of 16 for 102 yards. Kyron Drones struggled late, going 0 for 1 and taking 3 sacks for 26 yards. Green Bay couldn't get much going on the ground either, with Damian Martinez leading the team with 20 yards on 8 carries, and Marshawn Lloyd adding 13, while Isaiah Nayer led the receivers with 4 catches for 34 yards. Trey Smack was perfect on field goals from 37, 58, and 38 yards, accounting for all 9 points. Defensively, Zaire Franklin, Brenton Cox Jr., and Keaton Oladapo each recorded a sack, and Green Bay even came up with a goal line 4th down stop, but the deeper units couldn't maintain that success. Denver, meanwhile, had contributions throughout their offense in the 27-7 win over Atlanta. Jarrett Stidham went 9 of 15 for 31 yards and a touchdown, connecting with Cortland Sutton 3 times for 60 yards before finding Jaleel McLaughlin for a 5-yard score. McLaughlin also added 24 rushing yards, while Adam Prentice finished Denver's opening 69-yard drive with a 1-yard touchdown run. Jonah Coleman chipped in 24 rushing yards, and Joseph Manjack IV caught 3 passes for 40 yards. The defense then provided the biggest swing when Jahdae Barron returned an interception 97 yards for a touchdown, with Red Murdoch leading the team with 8 tackles and Drew Sanders adding the Broncos' lone sack. Denver's depth helped turn a 24-0 halftime lead into a comfortable 27-7 victory. I think this game will come down to whether Green Bay can turn its depth's individual production into touchdowns instead of settling for field goals. Denver just showed it can get meaningful contributions from its quarterback, skilled players, and defense, and I think that balance gives the Broncos the advantage. I'm picking the Broncos to come away with the win, moving Denver to 2-0 while Green Bay falls to 0-2. Washington enters this matchup with some momentum after a 20-7 win over Miami, while Detroit is looking to respond after a 16-14 loss to Cincinnati. The Commanders showed they could create offense with their depth, while the Lions had a late rally that nearly stole their opener. Washington's offense had a productive night against Miami, starting with the Dolphins' 14-play, 93-yard touchdown drive before the Commanders answered with 17 points in the second quarter. Ethan Kaliakmanis went 6 of 10 for 87 yards, while Sam Hartman added 80 yards on 8 of 15 passing. The ground game was especially effective, with Katron Allen rushing for 85 yards and a touchdown on 23 carries, and Robert Henry Jr. adding 75 yards and another score on just 12 attempts. Jacoby Jones led Washington with 2 catches for 33 yards, while Jalen Lane added 31 yards on 3 catches. Defensively, the Commanders held Miami scoreless after the opening quarter, with Antonio Hamilton Sr. leading the team with 5 tackles and Ricky Barber recording a sack. Detroit had a much tougher time offensively against Cincinnati, turning the ball over 3 times before nearly completing a late comeback. Luke Altmaier finished 13 of 22 for 130 yards, 2 interceptions, and a touchdown, but his best stretch came late, when he directed a 12-play, 80-yard drive and found Tariq Black for a 24-yard touchdown with under 2 minutes left.
Oh no!
Altmaier then ran in the 2-point conversion to cut the deficit to 2, although Cincinnati recovered the ensuing onside kick. Jacob Sailors led Detroit with 55 rushing yards on 8 carries, while Raheem Blackshear added 33 yards. Black's touchdown was Detroit's only receiving score, with Dominic Lovett and Sailors each contributing 28 receiving yards. Defensively, Ahmed Hassanein stood out with 4 tackles and 2 sacks, helping the Lions hold Cincinnati to just 16 points despite the offense's struggles. Washington showed more consistency in its opener, particularly with the running game, and I think that gives the Commanders the edge here. Detroit's late rally was encouraging, but the turnovers and inconsistent offense are difficult to overlook. I'm picking Washington to come away with the win, moving the Commanders to 2-0, while the Lions fall to 0-2. Atlanta is looking to bounce back from a 27-7 loss to Denver, while Indianapolis is coming off a 13-13 tie with New England. The Falcons struggled to generate much offense in their opener, while the Colts showed some encouraging flashes but also turned the ball over 4 times. Atlanta had a rough night offensively against Denver, managing only 192 total yards and 11 first downs. Cooper Rush went 7 of 19 for 62 yards with 2 interceptions, while Jack Strand provided Atlanta's only touchdown with a 1-yard run after a short 17-yard drive. Tua Tagovailoa completed 3 of 5 for 22 yards in limited action, and Tyler Goodson led the rushing attack with 28 yards on 7 carries. The Falcons' defense did manage to keep fighting despite Denver's early 24-0 lead, but they couldn't consistently get off the field as the Broncos controlled over 36 minutes of possession. Indianapolis had a much more encouraging offensive showing despite the tie. Anthony Richardson looked sharp in his return to preseason action, completing 11 of 14 for 145 yards, while adding 53 rushing yards and a 1-yard rushing touchdown. Will Mallory became his favorite target, catching 6 passes for 80 yards, while Anderson Castle added 47 yards on 9 carries. The Colts did have costly mistakes though, with Richardson losing a fumble and throwing an interception, while Riley Leonard also threw a pick and finished 10 of 21 for 89 yards. Indianapolis eventually erased a late deficit when Spencer Schrader drilled a 61-yard field goal with 1:16 remaining, and the defense finished with 2 sacks from Caden Curry and George Gumbs Jr. I think this one will come down to whether Atlanta can get more consistent quarterback play while limiting the explosive plays Indianapolis found with Richardson and Mallory. The Falcons have plenty of opportunity to respond after a tough opener, but the Colts showed more offensive consistency in theirs. I'm picking Indianapolis to come away with the win, moving the Colts to 1-0-1, while the Falcons fall to 0-2. Buffalo is coming off a dominant 29-7 win over Carolina, while Cleveland fell 34-10 to Chicago. The Bills got strong production from Josh Allen before the depth took over, while the Browns had a competitive first half before Chicago pulled away after halftime. Buffalo jumped out quickly, with Josh Allen going 6 of 8 for 111 yards and a touchdown, including a 9-yard score to Keon Coleman on an 80-yard drive. Tyler Bass added field goals from 33, 46, and 29 yards, and Buffalo's defense held Carolina to just 201 total yards. The depth then took over late, with Ian Wheeler breaking a 6-yard touchdown run before Frank Gore Jr. added another score from 3 yards out. Dawson Knox and Coleman helped move the passing game, while Michael Dana recorded 2 sacks and Toriano Pride Jr. led the Bills with 6 tackles. Cleveland actually opened with a strong stretch against Chicago, taking a 10-0 lead after KC Concepcion finished an 81-yard drive with a 14-yard touchdown run. Deshaun Watson completed 11 of 15 for 126 yards, while Dylan Sampson led the Browns with 43 receiving yards and Devon Booth added 53 rushing yards. But after Chicago tied the game at halftime, Cleveland couldn't keep pace, turning the ball over 3 times while being outscored 24-0 after halftime. Winston Reed led the defense with 6 tackles and Julian Aquara recorded a sack, but Chicago's offense eventually wore the Browns down. This should come down to whether Cleveland can avoid the second-half collapse it experienced against Chicago. Buffalo showed it can get production from both its starters and depth, and I think that gives the Bills the advantage. I'm picking Buffalo to come away with the win, moving the Bills to 2-0, while the Browns fall to 0-2. Baltimore is coming off a 24-7 win over Philadelphia, while Minnesota opened the preseason with a 13-10 win over the Giants. Both teams got some really encouraging work from their younger players, but Baltimore's passing game stood out more, while Minnesota leaned heavily on its running game. Baltimore had a strong night from its young offensive pieces against Philadelphia, with Tyler Huntley going 6 of 7 for 76 yards before Joe Fagnano took over and completed 22 of 28 for 224 yards and a touchdown. Fagnano's score went to Jacoby Lane, but Baltimore got contributions throughout the offense, with Elijah Surratt leading the team with 6 catches for 66 yards, Matthew Hibner adding 5 catches for 61, and Adam Randall rushing for 46 yards and a touchdown. Austin Reed, who recently joined the Ravens after playing in the UFL, also got his opportunity and punched in a rushing touchdown, giving him an early way to make an impression in Baltimore's quarterback room. Defensively, Keon Martin stood out with 4 tackles and a sack, while the Ravens held Philadelphia to just 159 total yards. Minnesota took a different approach against the Giants, using Kyler Murray for just one 9-play drive. Murray completed 2 of 3 for 10 yards, including an 8-yard third down conversion to Jordan Addison, before Carson Wentz took over and threw the eventual go-ahead touchdown to Miles Price. Rookie Damond Claiborne also got an extended look and carried 12 times for 34 yards, showing some burst with runs of 7 and 9 yards, although he was stopped twice from the 1-yard line. The Vikings defense held New York to 201 total yards and forced 2 turnovers, with Dallas Turner and Jay Ward each recording a sack, and James Pierre and Bengali Kamara helping keep the Giants' rushing attack in check. Minnesota also had a scare when Jamal Adams left after 11 snaps with a torn quad, which ended his season prematurely. This matchup should come down to whether Minnesota's run-heavy approach can keep Baltimore's passing attack from controlling the game. The Vikings showed they can win a low-scoring game with their depth, but Baltimore's combination of Fagnano, Huntley, Lane, and Hibner gives the Ravens more offensive firepower. I'm picking Baltimore to come away with the win, moving the Ravens to 2-0 while Minnesota falls to 1-1. New York is coming off a 13-10 loss to Minnesota, while Miami fell 20-7 to Washington. Both teams showed flashes from their depth in their openers, but neither offense could maintain its early momentum. The Giants' best stretch came in the second quarter when Jackson Dart led a 10-play, 63-yard drive and found Malachi Fields for a 15-yard touchdown. Dart finished 3 of 4 for 26 yards, while Jameis Winston completed 8 of 9 for 89 yards. Devin Singletary provided a 40-yard reception, and Ben Sauls added a 46-yard field goal to put New York ahead 10-3 at halftime. The offense couldn't keep that rhythm going after the break, though, with Brandon Allen throwing 2 interceptions as Minnesota scored 10 unanswered points. The Giants' defense kept the game close, but New York couldn't find another scoring drive to reclaim the lead. Miami also started fast, with Malik Willis leading a 14-play, 93-yard drive that ended with Devon Achan's 1-yard touchdown. Willis's biggest play was a 28-yard connection with rookie Caleb Douglas, while Ollie Gordon II provided some juice in the run game with 39 yards on 7 carries. Once the backups took over, though, Quinn Ewers went 1 of 8 for 27 yards with an interception, and Cam Miller threw 2 more picks. Miami's defense still had some strong individual moments, with Jackson Woodard leading the team in tackles, Mason Reiger and Cameron Good recording sacks, and David Ajabo and Max Llewellyn splitting another. Washington's 2 second-quarter rushing touchdowns ultimately turned Miami's early 7-0 lead into a deficit it couldn't overcome. This one should come down to which team gets more from its depth once the starters and top options are off the field. The Giants showed a little more consistency from their quarterback room, while Miami's running game gave it some positives, but the backup passing game struggled. I'm picking the Giants to come away with the win, moving New York to 1-1, while Miami falls to 0-2. New Orleans is coming off a 24-20 loss to Jacksonville, while Los Angeles opened the preseason with a 20-12 comeback win over Kansas City. Both teams showed some promising depth, but the Saints will need to avoid another second-half collapse after letting a 20-6 halftime lead disappear. New Orleans controlled the first half against Jacksonville, with Zach Wilson going 11 of 16 for 145 yards and a touchdown, including a short scoring pass to Oscar Delp that helped build the 20-6 lead. Bob Means led the Saints with 77 receiving yards, while Berrien Brown added 53, and Audric Estime opened the game with a 9-yard touchdown run. The defense also made some plays early, with Michael Heldman recording 2 sacks, and Garrett Nelson and Fadil Diggs adding 1 apiece. But the Saints couldn't maintain that pressure after halftime, throwing 2 interceptions and getting shut out in the final 2 quarters as Jacksonville scored 18 unanswered points. Los Angeles had a much different finish against Kansas City, trailing 9-6 entering the fourth before Ty Simpson completely changed the game. The rookie went 21 of 25 for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns, including back-to-back fourth-quarter scores to Dean Connors, who finished with 29 receiving yards and both touchdowns. Brennan Presley also provided 58 receiving yards, while Jordan Waters and Jarquez Hunter combined for 72 rushing yards. Defensively, Nick Anderson led the Rams with 9 tackles, while Tim Keenan III and Dejuan Johnson each recorded a sack. After Kansas City had controlled long stretches with Harrison Butker making all 4 of his field goals, including a 59-yarder, the Rams offense finally broke through with a 23-yard touchdown drive and then an 87-yard scoring drive to seal the comeback. I think this one comes down to whether New Orleans can prevent another second-half collapse. The Saints showed plenty of offensive ability early, but the Rams' young players demonstrated they can take over when given opportunities. I'm picking the Rams to come away with the win, moving Los Angeles to 2-0 while New Orleans falls to 0-2. Chicago is coming off a 34-10 win over Cleveland, while Cincinnati edged Detroit 16-14. Both teams got strong contributions from their backup quarterbacks and depth, but they took very different paths to their victories. Chicago's offense really picked up after Tyson Bagent helped keep things competitive early, finishing 13 of 22 for 169 yards and a touchdown. Case Keenum then provided the biggest spark, going 9 of 10 for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns, including scoring connections that helped turn the game into a blowout. Caden Davis led the Bears with 88 receiving yards, while Ray McLeod added 63, and Salvin Ahmed contributed 55 yards and a touchdown through the air. The defense was just as important, with Beanie Bishop Jr. intercepting 2 passes and Jamari Chroma recording 2 sacks as Chicago shut Cleveland out in the second half. Cincinnati had a much tighter battle with Detroit, but Joe Burrow gave the Bengals an efficient start by completing 5 of 6 for 39 yards before Joe Flacco took over and threw a 4-yard touchdown to Jack Endries. Josh Johnson led Cincinnati with 84 passing yards, while Dante Myers had 29 receiving yards, and Kendall Milton led the rushing attack with 21 yards. The Bengals' defense held Detroit to field goals for most of the night, and Chris Jenkins Jr. recorded a sack. Even after the Lions pulled within 2 on Luke Altmaier's 24-yard touchdown pass to Tariq Black with 1:28 remaining, Cincinnati recovered the onside kick to close it out. I think this matchup comes down to whether Cincinnati can keep Chicago's depth from producing the explosive plays it generated against Cleveland. The Bears showed much more firepower from their backup offense, while the Bengals demonstrated they can make enough plays defensively to protect the lead late. I'm picking the Bears to come away with the win, moving Chicago to 2-0, while Cincinnati falls to 1-1. Philadelphia is coming off a 24-7 loss to Baltimore, while New England opened the preseason with a 13-13 tie against Indianapolis. Both teams got extensive looks at their depth, with Philadelphia struggling to generate much offense and New England showing some encouraging pieces despite settling for a tie. The Eagles struggled to find a rhythm against Baltimore, finishing with just 83 passing yards, but there were a few bright spots from the depth. Cole Payton led Philadelphia with 45 rushing yards and later connected with Eric Ezukanma for the Eagles' only touchdown, while Will Shipley added 22 yards on 7 carries. Defensively, Mac McWilliams led the team with 10 tackles, and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Taron Jackson, and Ty Robinson each recorded a sack. Philadelphia finally put together a scoring drive in the fourth quarter, going 59 yards in 9 plays, but by then Baltimore had already built a 24-0 lead. New England's offense had a steadier night against Indianapolis. Tommy DeVito completed 13 of 22 for 138 yards and found Kyle Williams for a 12-yard touchdown on a 12-play, 82-yard drive. Kobe Prentice led the Patriots with 40 receiving yards, while Lan Larison added 38 yards through the air, and Jam Miller led the rushing attack with 55 yards on 14 carries. The defense also created 2 turnovers, with John Saunders Jr. and Kindle Vildor each intercepting a pass, while Joshua Farmer recorded a sack. New England appeared to have control after Andy Borregales' 52-yard field goal put the Patriots up 13-7, but Indianapolis answered with 2 long Spencer Schrader field goals, including a 61-yarder with 1:16 remaining to force the tie. For me, this comes down to whether Philadelphia's young offensive pieces can make the kind of plays they couldn't consistently make against Baltimore. New England showed more balance in its opener, and I think the Eagles' depth has enough talent to bounce back. I'm picking Philadelphia to come away with the win, moving the Eagles to 1-1, while New England falls to 0-1-1. Kansas City is coming off a 20-12 loss to the Rams, while Tampa Bay rallied from an early deficit to beat the Jets 24-16. Both teams got some interesting performances from their depth, but the Chiefs will be looking to turn their offensive production into more touchdowns. Kansas City moved the ball against Los Angeles, but had trouble finishing drives. Garrett Nussmeier completed 13 of 19 for 98 yards, while Chris Oladokun added 63 yards, and Justin Fields went 4 of 4 for 41 yards in limited action. Emmett Johnson led the rushing attack with 59 yards on 12 carries, while Brashard Smith added 21 yards. Jade Knott led the Chiefs with 40 receiving yards, and Harrison Butker kept them in the game with 4 field goals, including a 59-yarder. Defensively, Jaden Hicks led Kansas City with 7 tackles, but the Rams eventually broke through with 2 fourth-quarter touchdown drives to turn a 12-6 game into a 20-12 win. Tampa Bay had to overcome a 10-0 deficit against the Jets, and Jalen Daniels provided the spark after replacing Connor Bazelak, finishing 10 of 15 for 111 yards and adding a rushing touchdown. Josh Williams then broke a 12-yard touchdown run to put Tampa ahead 17-13 after an 80-yard drive. The biggest swing came when undrafted rookie Aiden Garnes intercepted Bailey Zappi and returned it 47 yards for a touchdown, while Jack Pyburn added 2 sacks and Demarion Williams led the defense with 12 tackles. Bauer Sharp also caught 4 passes, showing some promise from the tight end spot as Tampa completed the comeback. For Kansas City, I think the key is finishing those drives and making the most of the opportunities the depth offense creates. Tampa showed against New York that it can overcome a slow start, but I think the Chiefs have enough pieces to respond. I'm picking Kansas City to come away with the win, moving the Chiefs to 1-1, while Tampa Bay falls to 1-1. Dallas is coming off a 17-7 win over Seattle, while Arizona bounced back from its opening loss by beating Las Vegas 27-14. Both teams got strong contributions from their depth, but Dallas controlled its game with sustained drives, while Arizona used a few explosive plays to pull away from the Raiders. The Cowboys fell behind Seattle early, but their offense settled in with a 16-play, 74-yard drive that ended in a field goal before taking the lead just before halftime. Sam Howell connected with Camden Brown for a 39-yard touchdown, and Brown struck again in the third quarter on a 2-yard score, finishing with 3 catches for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. Joe Milton III was also efficient, going 12 of 15 for 107 yards and a touchdown, while Malik Davis and Israel Abanikanda combined for 75 rushing yards. Dallas's defense then completely shut Seattle down after the opening quarter, with Curtis Robinson leading the team with 8 tackles and James Houston recording a sack. Arizona had to work a little harder against Las Vegas, but the Cardinals' depth offense produced plenty of big plays. Gardner Minshew went 14 of 16 for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Jacoby Brissett added a perfect 5 of 5 for 44 yards and another score. Corey Kiner and rookie Jeremiah Love combined for 117 rushing yards, while Jalen Brooks caught 6 passes for 52 yards and a touchdown. Arizona's defense also helped swing the game, with Walter Nolan III and Elliott Brown each recording a sack. After the Raiders tied the game at 14 in the second quarter, Arizona answered with 2 third-quarter scoring drives and shut Vegas out the rest of the way. This matchup should come down to whether Dallas can keep Arizona's depth from creating the kind of explosive plays it produced against Las Vegas. The Cowboys showed plenty of balance against Seattle, but I'm more impressed with what Arizona's backups have done so far. I'm picking the Cardinals to come away with the win, moving Arizona to 2-1, while Dallas falls to 1-1. Seattle is coming off a 17-7 loss to Dallas, while Tennessee opened the preseason with a 19-13 win over San Francisco. Both teams had some encouraging depth performances, but Seattle will be looking to turn its promising individual performances into more consistent offense. Seattle opened against Dallas with a 13-play, 80-yard touchdown drive as Drew Lock went 9 of 13 for 40 yards and found Monterey Foster Jr. for the score. Foster finished with 5 catches for 36 yards, while George Halani led the ground game with 42 yards on 12 carries. Jalen Milroe added 36 rushing yards on just 5 carries, although he was sacked 3 times. Defensively, Tyrese Knight led Seattle with 10 tackles, and Rashad Rochelle added a 52-yard punt return, but the Seahawks couldn't capitalize on their opportunities, including a missed 45-yard field goal and a fumble recovery deep in Dallas territory. Seattle ultimately finished with just 156 total yards and couldn't score after that opening drive. Tennessee's quarterback room was more spread out against San Francisco, with Cam Ward completing 5 of 12 for 57 yards, Will Levis going 3 of 8 for 42, Mitchell Trubisky adding 23 yards on 2 of 3, and Hendon Hooker finishing 2 of 3 for 17. The run game made up for some of that, as the Titans totaled 167 rushing yards, led by Julius Chestnut's 47 yards, while Tyjae Spears broke a 25-yard run and Tony Pollard capped Tennessee's opening 95-yard drive with a 5-yard touchdown. Nicholas Singleton added 31 yards, including an 8-yard run on the drive that set up a 39-yard field goal. Tennessee's passing game also produced a few key plays, including Mitchell Trubisky's 17-yard completion to Chimere Dike, while Joey Sly went a perfect 4 for 4, hitting from 39, 53, 55, and 58 yards. Defensively, Cordale Flott led the team in tackles with 5, while Monty Powell, Timmy Horn, and Jalen Holmes also got to the quarterback. This matchup should come down to whether Seattle can get more out of its quarterbacks and keep its offense from disappearing after halftime. Tennessee's passing numbers weren't spectacular against San Francisco, but its 167-yard rushing attack and Sly's perfect night consistently kept the Titans in scoring range. I'm picking the Seahawks to come away with the win, moving Seattle to 1-1 while Tennessee falls to 1-1.